At the beginning of Samson's story, Israel was suffering under the oppressive control of the Philistines. Born to fulfill a divine mission, Samson was designated as a Nazarite from birth and blessed with immense strength to accomplish God's plans. His life's tale is documented in the Book of Judges. The narrative recounts that the Israelites once again engaged in misdeeds that displeased the Lord, leading to their subjugation by the Philistines for 4 decades, Judges 13:1. Within this context, the narrative shifts focus to a man named Manoah from Zorah of the Danite tribe. Manoah's wife was unable to have children, Judges 13:2. However, a pivotal moment occurs when an angel of the Lord visits her and prophesies the birth of a son who would liberate Israel from its oppressors, Judges 13:3. The angel's message to Manoah's wife was clear and miraculous. Though she was barren, she would conceive and give birth to a son. This event mirrors other significant births in the Bible, like those of Isaac in the Old Testament and John in the New Testament, where miraculous conceptions lead to pivotal figures in biblical history. The boy was destined to be Israel's savior from the Philistine domination, and he was to be raised under the strictures of the Nazarite vow, setting him apart from previous judges in a unique way. This vow is outlined in Numbers 6:1-5, where the Lord instructs Moses to convey to the Israelites the details of committing oneself to a Nazarite vow. Anyone dedicating themselves in this manner must abstain from all products of the vine, including wine, fermented drinks, vinegar, grape juice, and even grapes or raisins themselves. Throughout their vow, they must not consume anything derived from the grapevine, nor cut their hair, allowing it to grow as a symbol of their holiness and dedication to the Lord until the vow's conclusion. This vow meant that Samson could not partake in wine or beer, nor could he cut his hair. Intriguingly, the angel also instructed Manoah's wife to avoid wine and beer during her pregnancy and to refrain from eating anything impure, thereby sanctifying her son as a Nazarite from before his birth. Although the angel delivered these instructions directly to Manoah's wife, she went to her husband to relay the extraordinary news, Judges 13:8-13. Following this, Manoah earnestly prayed for the angel to return and provide further guidance on how to raise the child destined for a divine mission. God heeded Manoah's request, and the angel visited again, this time appearing to his wife as she sat in the fields, with Manoah absent during the encounter. Upon seeing the angel again, the woman quickly sought out her husband, excitedly telling him, "The man who visited me before has appeared to me once again." Prompted by her urgency, Manoah immediately followed her back to where the man was. Upon arriving, he asked the visitor, "Are you the man who spoke to my wife?" And the visitor confirmed, "I am." Manoah, eager for confirmation and guidance, asked, "Please ensure that what you have said will happen. What should be the lifestyle and mission of the boy to be born?" The angel reiterated to Manoah, emphasizing the importance of adherence. "Let your wife be careful to follow all that I have instructed. She must not consume any product of the vine, nor drink wine or any similar drink, nor eat anything unclean. She must observe everything I have commanded her." Manoah, perhaps still not fully grasping that he was speaking with a divine messenger and thinking him just a prophet, kindly offered, "Please stay with us, and we will prepare a young goat for you." The visitor agreed to stay but declined to eat, suggesting instead that it would be more fitting for them to make a burnt offering to the Lord. As Manoah placed the burnt offering upon the rock as instructed, the visitor performed a miraculous act. He ascended into the heavens within the flames. Witnessing this, Manoah and his wife fell prostrate in awe. Overwhelmed with fear, Manoah exclaimed, "We are surely doomed to die because we have seen God." He understood that the angel of the Lord was a divine presence, Judges 14:19-24, Manoah had prepared the young goat and the grain offering, placing them upon the rock dedicated to the Lord. As they watched, something remarkable occurred. As the flames leapt towards the sky from the altar, the angel of the Lord rose within them. Realizing the angel would not appear again, Manoah recognized the true identity of their visitor and feared for their lives, saying, "We will surely die, for we have seen God." However, his wife reassured him, pointing out, "If the Lord had intended to kill us, he would not have accepted our offerings, nor shown us all these wonders, nor would he have revealed such promises to us now." In due time, the woman gave birth to a son and named him Samson. As he grew, the Lord's blessings were upon him, and the Spirit of the Lord began to stir within him at Mahaneh-dan, located between Zorah and Estaol. Though Samson's life was marked by a series of questionable decisions, his story underscores the notion that God can use even flawed individuals to fulfill divine purposes, demonstrating that Samson, though distinctly set apart from birth, was both human and a vessel of God's work. Samson journeyed to Timnah, where he was captivated by a young Philistine woman. Upon returning home, he expressed his desire to marry her to his parents. Concerned, his parents advised him against marrying outside their community, especially not a Philistine, who were not among God's chosen people. However, unbeknownst to them, Samson's attraction to this woman was part of a divine plan that sought to create a pretext for conflict with the Philistines, who at that time dominated Israel, Judges 14:1-4. Samson insisted to his father and mother, "I have seen a woman in Timnah. Fetch her for me as my wife." His parents questioned him, asking if there was no suitable woman among their own people or relatives, and why he would want to marry one of the uncircumcised Philistines. Despite their concerns, Samson was adamant, declaring, "She is the one for me." His parents were unaware that this situation was orchestrated by the Lord, who intended to use it as an opportunity to challenge the Philistine rule. As Samson traveled back to Timnah to meet his prospective bride, he encountered a young lion. The Spirit of the Lord surged powerfully within him, and he overpowered and tore the lion apart with his bare hands, as if it were a young goat. This act was a clear sign of his divine empowerment for a special mission, Judges 14:5-7. Continuing his journey with his parents to Timnah, as they neared the vineyards, a young lion charged at him. Filled with divine strength, Samson dispatched the lion effortlessly, keeping this feat a secret from his parents. Afterward, he continued to the town, met the woman again, and his fondness for her grew. At what was likely his engagement celebration, Samson decided to challenge his Philistine guests with a riddle during the feast, offering 30 changes of clothes as a prize, a significant mark of honor and wealth in those times. Drawing from his recent encounter where he had found honey in the carcass of a lion, he crafted his riddle. Out of the eater came something to eat, and out of the strong came something sweet. Judges 14:10-14. Samson's father visited the woman's family, and there Samson hosted a feast, as was the tradition for young men. The attendees selected 30 men to accompany Samson, who then presented his challenge. "Solve my riddle within the 7 days of this feast, and I will reward you with 30 linen garments and 30 sets of clothes. If you fail, you owe me the same." Curious, they urged him, "Tell us your riddle. Let's hear it." Samson responded with his riddle, and for 3 days they were stumped. Frustration and anger set in among the Philistines as they struggled with the riddle. Desperate, they threatened Samson's bride, a fellow Philistine, and her family with death unless she could coax the answer from Samson and reveal it to them. Under this intense pressure, she pleaded with Samson over the course of the feast, weeping for 7 days until, worn down by her persistent entreaties, he finally disclosed the riddle's solution to her. She, in turn, relayed it to the Philistine men. When the men presented the correct answer, Samson immediately knew the source of their knowledge. Enraged and empowered by the Spirit of the Lord, he went to another town, killed 30 men, and took their garments to fulfill his end of the wager. After this violent act, he returned home, leaving his wife behind. Over time, Samson caused even more havoc among the Philistines. He aimed to see his wife, but her father blocked him from her chamber, having already given her away to another man, mistakenly thinking that Samson no longer favored her. In retaliation, Samson orchestrated a fiery destruction of their fields by capturing 300 foxes, tying their tails together in pairs with torches attached, igniting them, and setting them loose in the Philistine crops. Judges 15, 1-5. Subsequently, during the wheat harvest, Samson took a young goat and attempted to visit his wife. He declared, "I'm going to my wife's room," but her father stopped him, saying, "I thought you despised her, so I gave her to your friend. Why not marry her younger sister instead? She's more beautiful." To this, Samson replied, "Now I am justified in seeking revenge against the Philistines. I will cause them significant harm." He then captured 300 foxes, tied them tail to tail in pairs, attached a torch to each pair, lit the torches, and released them into the Philistine fields, burning not only the crops, but also the vineyards and olive groves. In retaliation, the Philistines killed Samson's wife and her father. Samson avenged their deaths using his formidable strength. Judges 15, 6-8. When the Philistines learned who was responsible, they burned his wife and her father. Samson vowed, "Since you have done this, I won't rest until I have my revenge." He then launched a brutal attack, killing many. Afterward, he retreated to a cave in the rock of Etam. In response, the Philistines encircled a village in Judah where Samson was hiding. To appease the Philistines, 3,000 men from Judah went to capture Samson, blaming him for provoking their oppressors. Ironically, they intended to surrender the very person God had sent to liberate them from Philistine domination. Samson only agreed to go with them after they assured him that they would not kill him themselves. Judges 15, 12-13. They told him, "We have come to bind you and deliver you to the Philistines." Samson responded, "Promise me you will not kill me yourselves." "We agree," they replied. "We'll only restrain you and hand you over to them. We won't take your life." With that, they secured him with 2 fresh ropes and escorted him from the rock. As Samson, bound and brought near, was seen by the Philistines, they shouted in anticipation. However, at that critical moment, the Spirit of the Lord mightily enveloped Samson. This spelled trouble for the Philistines. Having the Spirit of the Lord descend forcefully on an adversary was the last thing they needed. Outnumbered by the divine force within him, Samson found the ropes binding him trivial. He picked up a new donkey's jawbone and used it to defeat 1,000 men, achieving feats only possible through divine assistance. Judges 15, 14, 15. As Samson neared Lehi, the Philistines advanced on him with cries. The Spirit of the Lord surged within him powerfully. The ropes on his arms turned to ash, and the ties fell away from his wrists. Seizing a new donkey's jawbone, he swung it and took down 1,000 men. After his victory over the Philistines, intense thirst overtook Samson, and he called out to the Lord. In response, the Lord mercifully revitalized him and brought forth a spring. Samson named it Spring of the Caller, and he continued to lead Israel for 20 years. Judges 15, 18, 20. Overwhelmed by intense thirst after his victory, Samson called out to the Lord, lamenting, "You have granted your servant this immense triumph. Must I now perish from thirst and be captured by the uncircumcised?" In response, God miraculously opened a hollow in Lehi, from which water flowed forth. As Samson drank, his strength was restored and he was revitalized. Consequently, the spring was named En-Hakkore, which persists to this day in Lehi. Samson continued to govern Israel for 2 decades during the era of the Philistines. When the Spirit of the Lord empowered Samson, it signified divine intervention, a theme recurrent in the Old Testament, where God's Spirit would manifest in response to particular needs. From the New Testament era onward, as stated in Ephesians 1:13-14, the Spirit of God began residing within every believer as a permanent indwelling from the moment of faith, serving as a guarantee of our inheritance until the redemption of those who are God's possession, to the praise of His glory. Romans 8:9 clarifies that being in the Spirit rather than in the flesh marks a true believer, highlighting a transformative shift post-resurrection where the Spirit's enduring presence replaces episodic descents. The same powerful Spirit that acted through Samson continues to work within us today, urging us, as per Galatians 5:16, to live by the Spirit and resist fleshly desires. This call to spiritual living is reinforced in Ephesians 5:18, which contrasts the effects of drunkenness with the filling of the Spirit, guiding believers to live under divine influence rather than succumbing to worldly excesses. At this juncture, Samson's decisions grew increasingly troubling. He traveled to Gaza, where he encountered a prostitute and spent the night with her. For many years, the Israelites had metaphorically prostituted themselves by worshipping other deities, as noted in Judges 2:17, disregarding their judges and pursuing foreign gods, thus straying from the path their ancestors had followed and ignoring the commandments of the Lord. They had deeply entangled themselves with the prevailing pagan customs, thus betraying their covenant with God. By this period in his life, Samson, as their leader, was overtly mirroring Israel's own spiritual failings, setting the stage for his eventual ruin. While in Gaza, the Philistines found out about Samson's whereabouts and believed they could capture him. They watched the city gates, intending to trap him. However, when Samson decided to leave, he demonstrated his formidable strength by uprooting the city gate along with its 2 posts, lifting them onto his shoulders and carrying them to the mountaintop facing Hebron, a feat unimaginable for an ordinary person to accomplish even over a flat, short distance. This act highlighted that despite straying from God's path, God's presence was still with him. Amidst this decline, Delilah came into his life, as detailed in Judges 16 verses 1-4, marking a pivotal moment. On another visit to Gaza, after spending the night with a prostitute, the townspeople plotted to kill him at dawn. However, Samson escaped in the middle of the night by tearing away the city gate and its posts and transporting them to a hill overlooking Hebron. Later, Samson found himself enamored with a woman from the valley of Sorek named Delilah. Her exact ethnic background is ambiguous, though she clearly aligned herself with the Philistines, particularly motivated by their offer of silver. The leaders of the Philistines approached Delilah with a lucrative proposal, coaxed the secret of Samson's extraordinary strength from him, enabling them to capture and neutralize him. They promised her a substantial sum, each leader offering 1,100 shekels of silver for her cooperation. Judges 16:5. Delilah attempted 3 times to unveil the secret behind Samson's strength, with the Philistines poised to strike. Each time, Samson misled her with a fictitious explanation. Despite these fabrications, Delilah gradually wore down his resolve. Eventually, she resorted to a tactic previously used by Samson's own bride, who had also betrayed him to the Philistines. Delilah challenged his love for her, questioning how he could profess his love without sharing his deepest secret, Judges 16:6 through 14. Thus, Delilah pressed Samson, asking him to reveal the key to his strength and the means by which he could be restrained. Samson responded with another ruse. He claimed he would lose his strength if bound with 7 fresh bowstrings that had not been dried. The Philistine leaders then supplied Delilah with these bowstrings, which she used to tie Samson while men lay in ambush within the room. She alerted him, "Samson, the Philistines are upon you." Yet when he awoke, he effortlessly broke the bowstrings, as if they were mere thread exposed to fire, keeping the true source of his strength concealed. Delilah confronted Samson, expressing her frustration. "You've deceived me and made a mockery of me. Now tell me, how can you be bound?" Samson responded, "Tie me with brand new ropes that haven't been used before, and I will be as weak as any other man." Taking his advice, Delilah tied him with new ropes. With men concealed in the room, she alerted him, "Samson, the Philistines are here." Yet he effortlessly broke the ropes from his arms as if they were mere threads. Delilah challenged him again, feeling betrayed. "You have continually mocked me and lied to me. Reveal to me how you can be bound." He told her, "Integrate the 7 locks of my hair with the weave of a loom, and secure it with a pin, and I will be as weak as any other man." As he slept, Delilah wove the 7 locks of his hair into the loom and secured it with a pin. Once again she alerted him, "Samson, the Philistines are upon you." He woke up and yanked the pin and the woven fabric from the loom. She reproached him for mocking her feelings, clearly indicating her disbelief in his love. Worn down by her constant nagging, Samson eventually divulged the truth. "My strength will leave me if my hair is cut, and I will become as weak as any other man." Judges 16:15 through 17. Delilah, troubled by his lack of trust, lamented, "How can you claim to love me when you don't share your secrets with me? You've made a fool of me 3 times now, and still haven't revealed the source of your immense strength." Her persistent nagging continued until he was utterly exhausted by it, prompting him to confess everything. "No razor has ever touched my head," he admitted. "I have been consecrated to God as a Nazarite from birth. If I were shaven, I would lose my strength and be as weak as any other man." Delilah acted swiftly. As Samson rested on her lap, she cut off his hair, acting while the leaders of the Philistines, who had brought the payment, lurked nearby. This allowed her to complete her betrayal. After Samson was stripped of his strength, the following words mark the gravity of his situation. Upon waking, Samson thought he would free himself as he had previously, not realizing that the Lord was no longer with him. Samson's grave error was placing his trust in Delilah above his allegiance to God, a mistake that cost him dearly. It underscores that no earthly bond should surpass one's connection with God. For his error, Samson suffered greatly. His eyes were removed, he was bound, and he was compelled to work in the Philistine prison. Essentially, God's enemies had taken control of his destiny. This incident teaches that forsaking God allows evil to dominate. As recounted in Judges 16:18-22, once Delilah confirmed his secrets, she alerted the Philistine rulers, "He has revealed all to me. Return one more time." They came back, silver in hand. Delilah then lulled him into sleep, summoned someone to shave off his 7 locks, weakening him completely. She cried out, "Samson, the Philistines are here!" He woke and thought to escape as before, unaware that God had departed from him. Then the Philistines captured him, blinded him, and brought him to Gaza, where he was chained and made to grind grain in prison. Meanwhile, his hair began to grow back after being shaven. In this passage, it becomes clear that God's plans for Samson were not yet complete. The narrative highlights the regrowth of his hair, which had been the source of his strength. This regrowth symbolizes Samson's internal shift back towards God, signaled by his renewed hair. This change within him would soon be evidenced by a prayer he would offer to God. Often, God must bring individuals to their lowest point to fully capture their attention. Samson found himself at rock bottom, yet his hair started to grow back. Meanwhile, the Philistine leaders gathered to offer a significant sacrifice to their god Dagon, celebrating their victory over Samson, who was now grinding grain in prison. They rejoiced, believing their god had handed their enemy over to them. During their festive gathering, they called for Samson to amuse them, positioning him between the pillars of the temple. This decision set the stage for their downfall. The temple was filled to capacity, with around 3,000 people on the roof alone. Sensing the opportunity, Samson prayed to God one final time for the strength to bring down the temple. He exerted all his might, and the temple collapsed, crushing the leaders and everyone present. In Judges 16:23-28, the text recounts that the Philistine rulers came together to make a grand sacrifice to Dagon, their god, and proclaimed joyfully, "Our God has delivered Samson, our enemy, into our hands." Upon seeing him, the crowd praised their deity, proclaiming, "Our God has handed over our enemy, the one who devastated our land and increased our dead." In their elation, they demanded, "Bring out Samson to entertain us." Consequently, Samson was summoned from his cell and performed for them. When positioned among the temple's pillars, Samson instructed the servant holding his hand, "Place me where I can touch the pillars that sustain the temple, so I may lean on them." The temple was densely packed with spectators, including all the Philistine leaders, and about 3,000 men and women on the roof watching Samson's performance. At that moment, Samson called out to the Lord, "Sovereign Lord, remember me. Please, God, grant me strength just once more to avenge the loss of my 2 eyes with a single strike against the Philistines." That day, Samson took more lives of his oppressors than he had during his entire lifetime. Despite his earlier missteps influenced by the surrounding culture, Samson is celebrated in Hebrews 11:32-33 as a figure of faith, alongside other venerable Old Testament figures like Daniel. This recognition should inspire hope in every heart. Though Samson was far from perfect, he recognized one crucial truth: God could employ him to fulfill divine purposes. Thus, we should all place our trust in God, align with His plans for our lives, and devote ourselves entirely to His service. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more amazing stories. Your support helps us keep bringing you great content. Also, we love hearing from you, so please leave a comment below and share your thoughts or any questions you might have. Thanks for watching.